The concept of a rapper spending an insane amount of cash on everything from diamond-encrusted pendants to golden grills is as old as hip-hop itself, with many artists feeling as if they need to flaunt what they have in order to be successful. And you won't be surprised to hear that it doesn't take long for these musicians to make waves with their wallets, often using the first money-making opportunity they have to spend an insane amount of their net worth. But what are some of the craziest things that rappers have purchased with their very first paychecks? And were these purchases worth it at the end of the day? Well, whether you're a fan of the rap scene or just want to know more about the ways that artists spend their hard-earned cash, you've come to the right place, as we're about to explore everything there is to know about the most insane first paycheck purchases out there. So, strap yourselves in and get ready to feel some jealousy, as things are about to get interesting. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications on, so you don't miss out on any of the new videos we post. Number 1. NBA Youngboy likes them exotic. First up on the list is NBA Youngboy, who has been called one of the biggest up-and-coming rappers of his generation. Also known to the world as Youngboy Never Broke Again, this artist has on many occasions referred to hip-hop and rap as the big bad jungle of the urban scene, knowing full well that he would have to make some waves before he could be called the king of the industry. And what better way to secure yourself as the king of the urban jungle than by getting yourself a little jungle pet? Well, that's precisely what crossed the mind of the Louisiana rapper who, according to Complex, had just signed a major contract with Atlantic Records for a rounded figure of $2 million. With this money, Youngboy went on to buy himself a little tiger cub, which he then proceeded to show off on his social media. This did, however, cause quite a bit of controversy considering how the vast majority of the world doesn't believe that tigers should be sold and taken out of their natural environments. It must also be said that the way Youngboy showed the tiger off by holding it by the scruff of its neck appeared to rub people the wrong way. In the now deleted video clip, viewers watched as the tiger walked around the home and took a dip in the pool, all while being followed by a black dog that was clearly trying to compete for the rapper's attention. As we mentioned earlier, this controversy led to the swift deletion of the post, as it's actually illegal to own a big creature such as this in Louisiana. This led to reports in 2018 that the tiger had actually been seized, the other outlets speculating that the tiger was actually not a tiger at all, but rather a big cat. If this was indeed a real tiger though, experts estimate the cub to have cost Youngboy around $7,500, not including the medical costs he would have to pay if the tiger decided that he looked a bit too much like dinner. And regardless of what you may think of his actions, there's no doubt that this was a baller first move on his part. Number 2. A ticket to CANDYLAND. Another rapper that had a pretty strange first purchase was Donald Glover, who fans will know better by his stage name of Childish Gambino. In an interview with Jimmy Kimmel back in 2019, the rapper was asked what he had bought with the proceeds from his first paycheck. Without skipping a beat, the star answered that he had actually gone on to buy himself a pair of Fruit Gushers, which to those of you who aren't familiar, are a Betty Crocker branded fruit snack. The reason why he decided to stop at his local store to buy this pack is pretty simple. You see, when Glover was a little kid, he was never allowed to eat candy of any kind. Think of the Tim Burton version of Willy Wonka, but with a better rhyming scheme. Funny enough, he remembers the feeling of freedom that he felt upon purchasing and eating the Gushers, telling Kimmel that he felt like he was bawling at the time. From that day forward, it goes without saying that Glover has bought himself a copious amount of sweets to make up for lost time. He actually mentioned this sugarless upbringing of his once more in his 2011 stand-up special Weirdo, in which he referred to his chosen cereal brands of Cheerios and Kix as cardboard doo-doo. Keeping all of this in mind, it actually makes sense that Glover has become such a candy fiend over the years, making this very first purchase of his a true display that he could be able to make it on his own, and that sentiment is sweet in more ways than one. Number 3. Straight to the dealership. You might not know this, but Lil Wayne actually became famous at a much younger age than you might expect. In fact, the professional rapper went on to become a member of the New Orleans rap group Hot Boys when he was only 14 years of age, and considering how this group featured incredible artists such as Juvenile, BG, and Turk, he was able to bring in quite a bit of cash from the start start. In fact, according to a 2015 interview of his ESPN News Power Hour squad, Lil Wayne indicated that the first paycheck he ever received was for an amount of approximately $6,500 US. Not bad at all for the day's work of a 14-year-old boy, right? So what did he do with the cash that he had earned? Well, according to him, he couldn't wait to get over to the nearest Nissan dealership and buy himself his very own Pathfinder. This was incredibly strange considering how Wayne wasn't even able to drive legally. In fact, the guy couldn't even participate in the Louisiana driver education course, as back in 1996 you had to be at least 15 to enroll, but he was able to get his Pathfinder anyway, mostly because money talks, and promised the dealership that he would only ever drive it with a supervisor right there next to him. This was apparently the moment that made Lil Wayne feel like a success, which is why he rapped about it in his track Russian Roulette, which mentions how he bought the Pathfinder but then had to find himself a chauffeur, and here we thought his first purchase would have been his infamous grills. Number 4. 50 Cent kept things real. As you're well aware of by now, many rap artists on the scene come from a pretty troubled background, with rap often being created in a culture of danger and raw emotion. A great example of this is 50 Cent, who rapped on the streets before he broke out with hits such as Candy Shop. It's actually a pretty well-known fact that 50 Cent made money dealing drugs before he was able to be recognized for his musical talent. When he signed with Columbia Records in 1999, though, things seemed to be looking up for the musician, who could finally leave his life of crime behind. That being said, he didn't want to stray too far from his unlawful past until things really kicked off for him. He had bills to pay after all, and didn't want to exit the drug trade until he knew that he would be able to make something of himself as a rap artist. So when he was given an advance by the studio, the very first thing he did was buy more drugs so he could keep on selling. 50 Cent went on to explain this decision of his to German journalist Falk Schott, who had asked why he would go back to selling drugs when he had clearly started to make it big in the industry. 50 referred to the $65,000 advances and cut it down, saying that $50,000 was passed on to Jam Master Jay, who 50 needed to be released from before actually signing with the record label. $10,000 of the remaining funds then had to be handed to the attorney who drafted his contract with the label, leaving only $5,000 over for his living expenses. This is why he decided to use the remaining funds to purchase drugs and continue trading until he was making enough to leave that life behind. Luckily for 50, this life gave him a lot of street cred on the scene, propelling his career forward. It did, however, also result in him being shot a few times, which clearly wasn't a great experience overall. But hey, whatever gets you by, right? Number 5. Fulfilling her childhood dreams. Another rapper that makes it on our list with one of the strangest first paycheck purchases is Eve, who used to rap in the 90s for the New York-based label Rough Riders. During an interview with InStyle magazine in late 2018, Eve answered the question of what she had purchased with her first paycheck by first summing up her childhood. She stated that her early life was pretty rough, and she knew that when she finally got out, she was going to do two things with the money she earned rapping. First off, she would take care of her family, as this was a no-brainer. But secondly, she would buy herself a colorful mink coat that only the wealthiest people in society were able to afford. According to her, she didn't even like the way that it looked, but loved the way that it would make her feel like she had finally made it. So when Eve did eventually get signed to Rough Riders, she went on to buy herself an expensive yellow mink coat, which cost more than an arm and a leg to buy. She admits that the coat made her look like Big Bird from Sesame Street, but the initials she had embroidered on the inside of it made her feel like $1,000,000, so she didn't even care. She also went on to reveal that she had always had a problem when it came to spending money. Before becoming a full-fledged member of the rap game, she worked retail and would often blow her hard-earned cash on silly things. Nothing like a colorful mink coat though, which she still loves to this day. But what do you think of these first purchases? Be sure to let us know in the comments section down below.